my name is Li Jilu. I was originally a 996-year-old overtime dog, an otaku who studied engineering. I painted pictures in the company every day, dreaming of one day I could travel to an ancient inventor, but it turned out to be a fucking time travel. A slight eye, a broken thatched hut, a leaking wall, and a yellow-skinned old lady lying on the bed, humming in her mouth and calling me Iron Gangster. When my brain is confused, what is going on? Is this my mother? Without reacting, there was a shouting sound outside the door, as thick as thunder. Li Ziju, where did you hide? If you owe the king and landlord, don't you give up the silver medal. I'll drag your mother to pay the debt today. As soon as I heard it, the fire came up. What? Still a debt? Debt? What kind of ghost feudal society is this? I woke up tightly, and suddenly a ding sound in my brain, as if I had opened my outside, and the knowledge of OEM came in a brain, which was as clear as the mechanical principles, simple tool-making, and the design of the steam machine. The system was as clear as it was engraved in my brain. I felt happy in my heart. Hey, this golden finger is coming in time. When I opened the door, I saw 3 big Hans standing outside, the one with a full face full of flesh, holding a wooden stick in my hand, staring at me as if I were looking at the dead. He sneered, "Ye, after hiding for a few days, I finally came out. The king and landlord said that if you don't add silver today, I will sell you and your mother to the city and give them to the public as slaves." I looked at his slightest look and didn't make a fuss all over, but when I looked down at my thin body, I definitely couldn't stand it. So I filled up my smile and said, "A few brothers, let me have a few days of width. I don't have silver at home, and my mother is still sick." The fat man spat, "Bear? Bah! The king and landlord have long been interested in your family's thin fields. He was so keen that he handed over the land deed, otherwise he would demolish your broken house today." As he said, he snatched his hand and 2 dog legs beside him, wanting to enter the house to drag people. I felt nervous in my heart, protecting me as the bottom line, and I would never let this bastard succeed. The brain is moving at a rapid speed, and a simple trap design and industrial knowledge emerges. Yes, just use this one. I pretended to be scared and hurriedly said, "Don't, I have a way to pay for it. There are some money-worthy things behind the house. Several big brothers come with me." The fat man was stunned and looked at me suspiciously. "What's worth the money? Don't play like flowers, otherwise it will break your legs." I pointed my head like garlic and took them to the small pile of firewood behind the house. While they were not paying attention, I picked up a sharp wooden stick, grabbed a handful of fine soil from the ground, and secretly stuffed it into my sleeves. "Where's the thing? Don't waste time." The hot and fat Han roared impatiently. I pointed to the pile of firewood and said, "It's right below, Brother Ma, please move it away." He snorted and pulled his waist to move the pile of firewood. I looked at the time and suddenly threw the fine soil into his eyes, and kicked him in the knee. He screamed with an ah, covered his eyes and fell to the ground. The 2 dog legs next to him were stunned for a moment, and immediately came up. I had already prepared to pick up a pointed wooden stick and stabbed one of the calves. He screamed and knelt down. Another person was pushing his fist, and I hid from the side, smashed the wooden stick on his back, and directly put him down. 3 people were lying on the ground and humming. I stood beside me, panting heavily, and I felt so happy. Hey, this is the power of knowledge. At this time, the people in the village were shocked by the people from the village. Several neighborhoods explored their brains and saw 3 dog legs on the ground, and their eyes widened. An old man walked over with a cane and said in surprise, "Iron, why did you beat the king's landlord's lackey? You've stabbed the horsebee this time." I wiped my sweat and grinned, "Old Zhang, these people are bullying too much," and forced my mother to come. If I don't teach them, they still think we're going to bully. The old Zhang looked at her eyebrows and said with a hint, "That's right, but the king and landlord are not good at slapping, he will definitely not be good at slack." I also know in my heart that this is just the first step, and the real trouble is still behind. But with the golden finger, I don't believe it or not to deal with a landlord. I patted the old Zhang on the shoulder, "Don't worry, I have a way to deal with it." But you are old, the iron craftsman is still there, right? I'll ask you for help sometime another day. The old Zhang was stunned and didn't say much. A crisp female voice from beside her sounded, "Brother Tai, you are so amazing. These little legs are usually domineering, and today there are people who will be cured." I turned around and saw that it was Tiechui from the village, looking at me with bright eyes, full of admiration. I was embarrassed and felt a little embarrassed. "Tiechui, don't exaggerate it, this is wherever you go. When I understand the matter at home, the people in our village will no longer be angry with the landlords." Tiechui's eyes became brighter, and she pointed, "Brother Tai, I believe you. If you have anything to help, come to me any time." The hot flesh on the ground came over and got up and stared at me fiercely. "Li Zizhu, you have a kind of thing. You dare to hit us, go back and tell the king landlord, see how he kills you." I sneered and kicked him. "Go back and tell the king landlord that I will still have the silver owed to him, but if I dare to force my mother again, I will let him go." The three doglegs held each other and ran away in shame. The villagers who were watching said that some people were worried that I had a big fuss, and some people quietly gave me a thumbs up and said I had a different kind. I didn't care much about this, and turned back to the house and looked at the old lady lying on the bed, feeling sad. "Mom, don't worry, my son has a way to protect you," I said lightly, holding her dry hand. My mother opened her eyes quietly and smiled weakly. "Iron, I know you are filial, but don't get into trouble because of Nian Wu. That landlord is not something we can offend." I snatched my head and said calmly, "Mom, these people bully us because we are so cruel and no one is holding our backs. But from today on, I won't let them jump to us again. Please rest assured to get sick, and leave the rest to me." My lady's eyes were wet, and she clicked a little, but she didn't say anything more. In the next few days, I didn't care about the industrial knowledge in my brain. I went over and over again, thinking about how to use the simplest materials to create something practical. The conditions in the village are too poor, and there are so few iron tools, but I remember that Zhang Tai's family has a small iron stove, which may be put on the market. I found the old Zhang and said my thoughts. He was stunned and said, "Iron cut, what are you saying? Use iron, leather and wood as a tool that can automatically dig soil? How is that possible?" I smiled and said, "Zhang Dawei, don't worry about how it is possible. Help me get some iron, leather and waste iron first, and hand over the rest to me." The old Zhang was half believing and half doubted, but he still answered and took me to his small workshop to search for materials. Looking at the pile of broken copper wires, there was a preliminary plan in my brain to make a simple leverage device first, which saves effort and is practical, and can help villagers to work and increase efficiency. After you have some money, you will slowly study more complicated machinery. After working hard for a long time, I used waste iron and wood to hit it, and finally made a rough lever tool. After trying it for a while, it was possible to easily pry up the big stone head, saving a lot of effort. The old Zhang was stunned and patted his thighs and said, "Iron, you really have two tricks. If you do more of this thing, the people in the village will be much easier." I clicked my head and thought more in my heart. This is just a small fight. The real goal is to build steam machines or even simple firearms. Only by mastering these hard power can you truly be strong with the landlords. However, at present, the urgent task is to solve the debt problems in the family so as not to find fault again. At this time, Tiechui ran over and said panting, "Brother Iron, it's not good. Landlord Wang heard that you hit someone and was so angry that he brought someone to the village, saying that he wanted to deal with you by himself." I bowed and held the tools in my hand tightly, and a sneer appeared at the corner of my mouth. "Good, I'm worried that I don't have the chance to teach them again." Tiechui smiled and said, "Brother Iron, they are crowded, don't come here." I patted her on the shoulder and felt confident. "Don't worry, I'm ready. This time they will never come back." As I said, I turned to the old Zhang. "Zhang Dawei, I'll lend you iron to use. I have to make some self-defense things all night long." I stood next to the small iron stove in my old Zhang's house, and moved quickly in my brain. The king and landlord brought people to find fault. This time, it is definitely not a small fight. It is not enough to rely solely on wooden sticks and local methods. I have to get some hardcore stuff out and make a code so that they know that Z, are not easy to mess with. Iron cut. Why do you say you are borrowing iron stoves? You don't want to make a few kitchen knives all night long, right? Old Jean looked suspicious, holding a kettle that just knocked the iron in his hand, staring at me as if he was looking at something strange. I grinned and said in a low voice, Jean Dawe, where's the kitchen knife? I want something that can scare people. You always help me find some sulfur and saltpeter, and charcoal, the more the better. The old Jean was stunned and pointed his eyebrows. Sulfur? Saltpeter? That's not something that only exists in medicine. What do you want to do? Don't ask, come and tell me first. These things can make our village turn over. I patted my chest, and the formula of black paraphos had appeared in my brain. Modern knowledge tells me that the principle of making hot medicine is very simple. As long as the proportion is right, it can blow up the flowers by slight fire. Although the conditions in the village are poor and I can't find any exquisite things, it's still okay to make a few rough bombs and blow up the lackeys who have left the king landlord. The old Zhang saw me seriously and didn't say much. He went out to find materials with a crutch. I turned to Tiechui. She was standing aside, her eyes full of worry. Brother Iron, are you really sure? The king landlord brought more than a dozen people this time, and he heard a few thugs, very fierce. I was happy with her and held her hand. What's the use of being fierce? We have brains. Tiechui, don't be idle, help me to go to the village and shout a few times, and call all the young and powerful little guys. We have to join us, otherwise I will be unable to hold on to the top of my head. Tiechui's eyes lit up and she kept busy. Okay, I'll go. After saying that, she ran out with smoke and shouted crisply, Brother Iron has a way to deal with the landlords, come and help. I looked at her back and felt warm in my heart. This girl is really reliable when it comes to key. Next, I didn't waste time. I squatted next to the iron stove, turned out the waste iron and wooden heads, and started knocking and hitting. Let's make a few simple thorns first, put them on wooden boards as traps, and bury them at the entrance of the village. Whoever dares to force them will suffer a little. Then I found a few thick bamboo tubes, and planned to plug the pyrodisiac into it as soon as the materials arrived, making it simple earth thunder. After working hard for most of the time, the old Zhang finally came back, holding a small bag of sulfur and a few pieces of saltpeter in his hand, and said panting, Iron, this is the only place for the medicine in the village. Charcoal is easy to find, and there are a lot of them in the backyard. What are you going to do? Don't make any trouble. I took the materials and smiled. Don't worry, Jean Dawe, please be sure to stay unprovoked. You always help me grind these things into powder, and I will adjust them again, and there will be a good idea to see them soon. Although Zhang was overwhelmed with his face, he still heard me and picked up the small stone mortar and started grinding the materials. I cut the bamboo tube with iron sheets on the side, and the action was as fast as a veteran. Not long after, Tiechui also came with more than a dozen villagers, most of whom were young men in the village, and several uncles. Looking at the bamboo tubes and iron thorns in my hand, he was confused. Iron cube, what's this? How to deal with the king and landlord? I stood up, patted the dust on my hands, raised my head and whispered, Brothers, the king and landlord have bullied us for a long time. We have forced us to get a lot of trouble, beat people, and do everything wrong. Today he brought people to find fault. If we hold on, we will have no way to survive in the future. I have figured out some ways and done these self-defense things. As long as everyone is in concert, we will ensure that they will never come back. A young man named Danius slapped his head and asked, Iron Guard, we have few people and we don't have any weapons, why do we fight with them? Once we anger the landlords, the people in the village will be depressed. I sneered and pointed to the bamboo tube in my hand. Weapon? That's it. Don't look at it inconspicuous, you will know it's hurt by it later. Everyone heard me. Bury these thorns on the small road at the entrance of the village, and then hide. Who should not show their heads and wait for my signal to take action? Everyone, look at me and I look at you. Although they are half believing and half doubting, they still start to work as I say. The thorns were buried, and several roads at the entrance of the village were blocked like thorns. I let several young men with wooden sticks and stones hide in the grass on the road, ready to steal at any time. At this time, Lao Zhang finally ground the ingredients, so I took the fine powder and started to adjust the black paradisiac according to the ratio in my memory. The proportions of sulfur, saltpeter, and charcoal must be determined, otherwise it will easily cause damage if you don't get fried. After half a while of busy work, I finally got half a bowl of black powder. I took the bamboo tube and carefully stuffed the turbulent into it, and sealed the mouth with cloth and fine sieve to leave a lead. Iron, what can this dark thing do? The old Zhang came over and was full of curiosity. I grinned and said, Zhang Dawei, you will know later. With this thing, I will surely scare the lackey of the king and landlords to the point of peeing. As soon as the voice fell, a rapid sound of footsteps came from the entrance of the village, followed by a few rough shouts. Li Zhizhu, you are a little confused, the one who dares to hit us. If you don't peel your skin today, I won't be the king. I knew as soon as I heard that the king landlord brought people, and the sound was filled with the smell of parafolia. I winked at Tiechui and said in a low voice, go and tell everyone, don't panic, hide, listen to my signal. Tiechui pointed at the head and ran to communicate quickly. I took 2 bamboo tubes with hot medicine and sneaked to the back of a large tree at the entrance of the village. When I looked at it, I saw more than a dozen people. The one who was headed was the king and landlord, who was as fat as a pig. He was wearing a robe and a whip in his hand. There were also several big and thick thugs next to him, swaying. Li Zhizhu, come out. I know you are in the village, don't think you can escape by hiding. Wang landlord stood at the entrance of the village and shouted with his throat. The fat on his face shook and made people feel disgusted. I lit a small wire, and the sparks on the bamboo tube hissed and white smoke appeared. I aimed at a place more than 10 meters away from the king's landlord's foot, threw it suddenly, and heard a huge bang sound, and a small pit was blown out of the ground, and the soil was flying and the gravel was shattered. The king landlord and his lackey were shocked by this silence. They stood there in a daze, and several small legs knelt on their feet. What's the thing? What is this? Landlord Wang's face turned pale, his voice trembled, and he quickly stepped back a few steps, almost falling. I felt so happy when I saw them like this, and immediately shouted, Lord, I heard it. This is the new thunder that I made. If I don't swell today, I will blow your brain the next time I hit it. Speaking of this, I ignited a second bamboo tube and made the frame I wanted to throw. The king's face was so scared that his face was green, and he shouted, don't be different, it's good to say. Li Zhizhu, you guys have a kind, let's take a look. He waved his hand, took a helping hand and ran away. He didn't dare to stay at the entrance of the village for too long, and escaped clean in shame. Only then did the people in the village poke out from their hiding place, looking at the pit on the ground, stunned. The big bull ran over and patted my shoulder, excited, Iron, how did you do it? How could this black thing explode? So damn awesome. I laughed and slammed my hand, this is where I go. This is just a little trial. I will make more good things in the future. Don't talk about the king and the old official in the capital. We can also give them a look. Everyone heard it, and their eyes lit up, and they kept asking the east and west in a word, and the military spirit was ignited. The old man Zhang also walked over and said with emotion, Iron, you kid are really not simple. With the thunder this day, I guess the king landlord dare not come again in a short time. However, this old man is very good and may go to the mansion to bring reinforcements. We have to prepare early. I clicked the head and knew in my heart that although the king landlord was blown away this time, this was just the beginning. He would definitely not be able to swallow this breath, and he might have brought more people to report it in a few days. I have to take advantage of this period of time to stabilize the production of paradisiacs, and get more weapons and farming tools to help villagers improve their production capacity and earn some money to meet greater trouble. Tiechui, from tomorrow, you will help me to identify the youth league in the village. Let's see who can fight and who can do it. We have to form a team to be responsible for defense and patrol. I turned to Tiechui. She pointed seriously. Don't worry, Brother Tai, I will do it. The people in our village have long wanted to turn over. In the next few days, I didn't care about it, and I continued to improve the pyropharma formula with my old Zhang. Although the power of the bamboo flask is good, the stability is too poor and it is easy to get angry, so I have to find a way to optimize it. At the same time, I also asked Daniu and others to make more thorns and wooden sticks to distribute them to the villagers. They can be used as agricultural tools in normal times, and they can be used as weapons if they really beat them. Just when I thought I could catch my breath, Tiechui suddenly ran over and said with a tight face, "Brother Iron, it's not good." Someone saw the king and landlord wandering outside the village, sneaking, as if they were inquiring something, and he also heard that he had asked a more ruthless character from the city to report us. I glanced at the forehead, held the iron in my hand tightly, and a sneer appeared at the corner of my mouth. Report? Okay, I'm worried that I don't have the chance to teach them again. Let them come, let's have a bigger play this time. Brother Tai, are you really planning to be tough with Landlord Wang? I heard that the people he asked this time are not simple. They come from the city and have real skills. Tiechui gasped, her eyes filled with worry. She stood in front of me, holding the linen towel that had just run back from outside the village. I put down the iron piece I had just knocked down, wiped the sweat on the head, and grinned. What are you afraid of? No matter how bad you are still a meaty person. We have brains and guys, but it won't work for anyone to come. Tiechui, go and tell Daniu and others that you will send a few more people to patrol the village at night, and don't let people come in. As I said, I pointed to a bunch of newly prepared bamboo bulbs on my side. If you have these things, whoever dares to come, I will give him a sound. Tiechui was a little bit nervous, although she was still a little uneasy, but I was full of confidence and didn't say anything more, so I turned around and went to talk. I lowered my head and continued to work hard, holding a small bag of black pyrodisiac in my hand, and carefully stuffed it into the bamboo tube. I have not been busy these days. The formula of the pyrodisiac has been much more stable, and its power is at least 30% greater than before. It sounds more loud when it explodes, and the gravel is flying farther. This sound alone can make people's legs look soft. The old Zhang squatted aside, helping me grind saltpeter, muttering in his mouth, "Iron, your thunder is a disaster this day, but the old fox of the king landlord cannot be triggered by scaring alone. Since he dares to come back, he must have a backup plan. We have to be careful." I pointed and squinted and said, "Zhang Daowei, don't worry, I have prepared for it. If he dares to come, I will make him regret giving birth." As he was speaking, a sudden whistle came from the entrance of the village, which was the police station by Daniu and others. I felt nervous, and the bamboo tube in my hand was almost unstable. Lima stood up, grabbed the 2 bamboo tubes with hot medicine and ran out. The old Zhang also followed and shouted, "Iron, don't move, wait until we are all sturdy before we get on." I can't wait. If they get away from each other, they will enter the village. I rushed out without looking back, and ran towards the big bull running back with panting. He looked panicked and shouted, "Iron, no good." The king and landlord brought more than 20 people, and several dressed like officials. He held a knife in his hand and was very angry. He came straight to the entrance of the village. I sneered and held the bamboo tube in my hand tightly. "Good here. Brothers, prepare guys, follow me. Today, let the landlord know that our village is not a place where he can go wild." The big bull heard it and stood up to greet the villagers hiding around. More than a dozen young men were holding wooden sticks, iron thorns, and even simple spears I made, and quickly gathered. I quietly touched the entrance of the village with people, hid behind the grass and trees, and looked out, and saw the fat figure of the king landlord, wearing a green robe, riding on the road, shouting proudly, "Li Zhizhu, you are a little confused, you dare to harm me. Today I brought the Lu manager of the mansion city to see if you don't have any more troubles." He stood beside him, wearing a long gray shirt, holding a long knife in his hand. His eyes were cold, and he looked at the entrance of the village as if he was looking for someone. My heart sank. This guy looked so simple. I guess he was the thug who asked the king landlord to spend a lot of money. But what if it hurts? I have the technology to crush the pressure, but I'm afraid you won't succeed. Big Neo, take a few people to the left, bury the thorns, and don't let them surround them. The rest of them come with me and prepare for a little fire. I gave a low voice and sent a bamboo tube to a young man named Ergu on his side, and taught him how to lead the line. Although everyone was tight, looking at the thunder in my hand, a lot of confidence still ignited in my eyes. The landlord Wang saw that the entrance of the village was not calm, and even more nervous. He urged Ma to walk forward for a few steps, and sneered in his mouth, "Hide. I thought I couldn't find you without saying a word. Manager Liu, take people in and drag the kid out. I want to take his skin with my hands." The tall and thin man smiled coldly, and strode forward with a few thugs. I looked at the timing and stood up suddenly, lit the bamboo tube in my hand, and threw it hard at their foot. Bang! With a huge sound, a large pit exploded on the ground, and the soil and gravel flew everywhere. Several thugs were directly overturned by the waves and were slammed with screams. The king almost fell off immediately, and his face turned as white as paper, and shouted in surprise, "It's this ghost thing again. Manager Liu, hurry up, retreat." But the manager Liu had a few points. Although he was blown up from dust, he gritted his teeth and pulled out his long knife and roared, "Little scoundrel, what's the ability to hide from hidden weapons? Someone comes out to pick it." I heard his pick, smiled, stood up from Chao Rui, held the second bamboo tube in his hand, and slowly swayed, "Single scoop? I won't play that trick with you. If I don't blow it, I will blow your face next time." Manager Liu was so angry that his face was crooked, but looking at the bamboo tube with white smoke in my hand, I didn't dare to move forward any further. The king and landlord were even more depressed and shouted, "Master Liu, don't come forward. This kid is very evil. Let's retreat first and then think of a way back." After speaking, he turned his horse and wanted to run away with help. "Want to run? It's not that easy." I shouted loudly and winked at Daniu. He lit up his horse and drove out from the side, holding a wooden stick and a spear in his hand, directly holding their retreat. At the same time, Ergo also learned how I was, ignited the bamboo tube and threw it over, and another bang sound, which made several thugs crawl in a lot, and even the knife was unstable. The king was panicked at this moment, and the writing immediately shouted, "Give me life, don't you? Li Jiju, I'm wrong, I shouldn't mess with you, please let me go." I looked at his demeanor and felt very happy, but I snorted coldly, "Give me a side? Yes, spit out the Tiechui and silver owed to our village first, otherwise you will lie down and go back today." He heard it and his face became even harder to see, and he could not speak hesitantly. Manager Liu was not right when he saw this, and he stared at me with gritted teeth and said, "Boy, don't be proud. Mr. Wang is just a small character, and he has offended the people in our city. Don't think about the whole village." I was about to talk to him, and directly lit a bamboo tube and wanted to throw it away, say one more word, "Try it." This trick really worked. Manager Liu's face changed and he finally closed his mouth. The king of landlord was busy and cried and said, okay, I'll hand it over. I'll give it to Tiechui in silver. Please don't throw that thing away." I sneered and shouted at the big bull, "Go, take all their weapons, take them back to the landlord's mansion, and hand over the things in front of our villagers." As soon as the big bulls heard it, they stood up and rushed up, and surrounded the king and landlords tightly. All the swords, guns and sticks were collected cleanly. The villagers also ran out of their hiding place at this time. Seeing the king and landlord being beaten by the vast expanse, they applauded and some even felt excited and their eyes came out, "Iron Mark, you are so bad. This old bastard is today." I looked at everyone's smiles, and my heart became warmer. Tiechui ran over and looked at me with bright eyes, "Brother Tai, we won. The king's landlord is so worried that he will never dare to bully others again." I patted her shoulder and said with a smile, "I won, but that's the beginning. It's not enough to knock down a landlord. We have to let the entire village and even the entire city know that we are not easy to bully. Next, We obeyed the king landlord and his lackey, and killed his old nest, the large mansion outside the village. The villagers followed behind, their voices were extremely strong. On the way, people from other villages kept hearing the sound of the audience. They heard that we had cleaned up the landlord Wang, and they were all shocked. When he arrived at the door of the landlord's mansion, the king and the landlord cried and handed over a bunch of land deeds and silver deeds. He also knelt on the face of the crowd and said to everyone, "Dear country, I, Mr. Wang, are not a thing. I offended many times before, and I will never dare to do anything again. Please let me go for a life." I looked at him coldly, took over the landlord, and turned to everyone. "In the past few years, what the landlord owes us, I will definitely come back today. From now on, who dares to bully the people in our village again, please greet him with this thunder." Everyone heard it and shouted, and the sound made the tiles of the landlord's mansion tremble. Although Manager Liu was not convinced, he didn't dare to say anything when he looked at the bamboo tube in my hand. He knelt on the ground with the king and landlord in shame, lowering his head. I feel so happy. This is the power of technology. No matter how a feudal Lao was, he had to kneel down and sing to conquer him in front of my hot pot. Just as everyone was immersed in the joy of victory, a rapid horse hoof sound suddenly came from afar, breaking the heat on the scene. I looked at me with a snake and looked around. I saw a team of people wearing official uniforms riding horses and rushing towards the landlord's mansion. A middle-aged man in charge had a dark face, holding a volume of official documents in his hand, shouting far away, "Who dares to gather in broad daylight? I am ordered by the court to investigate the matter, and I will quickly surrender." My heart sank and I thought it was not good. This helps the guy too quickly. It must be that the king and landlord had already hooked up with the government and kept a backup plan. Tiechui came over and said in a low voice, "Brother Tiechui, this is the officer and soldier in the city. The leader seems to be a high-ranking official. What should we do?" I gritted my teeth, held the bamboo tube in my hand tightly, and looked at the horse team far away with a steady look. "What are you afraid of? The landlords have all fallen down. Are you still afraid of a few officials? Brothers, prepare well, let the people from the court today, let's take a look at what it means to be a poor life in the people, and force them to go to Liangshan." The sound of horse hooves is getting closer and closer, and the scattered earth is flying, and the soldiers of the team have already arrived at the entrance of the landlord's mansion. The middle-aged man in charge turned over the horse, wearing a dark blue official robe, with a jade pendant hanging around his waist, and his face was full of arrogance. His eyes swept past us like a group of pigs and sheep waiting to be slaughtered. He snorted coldly, and the official document in his hand shook, and said loudly, "I am Zhang Qianya, a member of the patrolmen of the city, and was ordered to investigate the case of gathering trouble." The farmers and other farmers dared to attack the landlords and quarrel in the place, but they did not quickly kneel down and confess their crimes. Otherwise, they would be killed. I stood in front, listening to the official accent of this guy, and came without a grudge, sneering in my heart, "What's the matter? Don't even kill me. I have even cleaned up the landlords, can I still be afraid of you as many as 10 people? He looked down and saw that he was holding a few bamboo tubes in his hand. He just left some stock for the landlord of the king, and he happened to take it to greet the dog official. "Zhang Qianjun, right?" I took a step forward, grinned, and the bamboo tube in my hand shook. "You government officials don't usually see you who are in charge of landlords bullying the people, but now they are running very fast, coming to snatch him back. Tell you, the people in our village will not kneel today. Whoever dares to take action, just try the taste of thunder in this way." Zhang Qianchen had a moment of eyebrows. He obviously didn't expect me to speak up. The officers and soldiers behind him also became restless. Several soldiers pulled out their swords and wanted to move over. He raised his hand and squinted his eyes to look at me, and said with a whisper, "Tianlei?" "Humph, the village man dares to speak wildly. I want to see, what are your abilities in this broken thing? Come on, take this person." As soon as the voice fell, several galloping soldiers urged the horse to come, and the sword light flashed and headed straight for me. The villagers were a little panicked when they saw this. Xiao Chui pulled my arm and said in a low voice, "Brother Iron, they are crowded, what should we do?" I patted her hand and said in a low voice, "Don't panic, look at me." As I said, I quickly lit the bamboo tube in my hand, aimed at the front of the rider, and threw it violently. Bang! With a loud noise, a big pit exploded on the ground. The soil under the horse's hooves were filled with 4 cushions. The horse that was hit in front was shocked and stood up. The rider Ain dropped the horse, filling the dust of the face, and humming in pain. The other soldiers were also stunned, and stopped Ma and did not dare to move forward. They looked at the black pit on the ground in amazement, and their faces changed. "What is this? This is..." Zhang Qianqian's eyes widened, and he had obviously never seen such a fight, and there was a little trick in his voice. I looked at his demeanor and felt very happy. I shouted loudly, "This is thunder. If you don't swell, you will explode on your body next time. Do you believe it?" As I said, I took out another bamboo tube from my waist and wanted to make a little fire. The officers and soldiers behind him took a few steps back. Zhang Qianqian's face was blue and he stared at me with gritted teeth, not daring to order another order to swell. A lieutenant came over him and said a few words in a low voice, probably not to force him. He snorted coldly and finally opened his mouth. "Okay, you are a villager who has some evil methods. I will not be more accustomed to you. When I go back to the city and gather the railway station, I will crush your small broken village." Iron Rider? I heard this, and smiled at the corner of my mouth. "Okay, no matter how many people you have, I will blow up one by one, and I will blow up one by one. Zhang Qianqian, remember, the people in our village are not afraid of death, but you dog officials, if you dare to step in another half a step, don't want to go back alive." As soon as this came out, the villagers Lima shouted, "Yes, blow them to death. We are not afraid. Brother Iron said right, whoever comes." The sound went higher and higher, and the air directly compressed the helping officers and soldiers on the other side. Zhang Qianqian looked even harder, so he glared at me fiercely, and finally let his hand go. "Retreat. Go back to the city and agree." After saying that, he turned his head and left in shame with a helper. Even the king and landlords dared not take a look. Looking at their backs, I sighed and said to everyone, "Brothers, I won another game today. But this helps the dog officials will not be good at ease. We have to seize the time, prepare for a bigger battle." The big bull patted his chest and said excitedly, "Iron, I will hear you. When to fight and how to fight, we will follow you." Xiao Chui also pointed and looked at me with bright eyes. "Brother Iron, what should I do next?" "We have to guard against them coming back." I clicked the head and my brain moved quickly. Zhang Qianqian said it was right. The iron gallery in the city was not a joke. It was definitely not enough to rely on a few bamboo tubes to blow up the hard work. I have to take advantage of this period of time to increase the production of pyrodisiacs and then produce more hardcore weapons, such as simple earth cannons or fire guns. Only when the weapons are installed to the teeth can we truly fight the court head-on. Old Zhang, our iron stoves have to work overtime, get more hot pot stocks, and try to make a few local cannons. I turned to the old Zhang. He was stunned and slammed his head. "Garden cannon? What kind of thing is that? Can it be more harmful than thunder?" I smiled and said, "Of course, the kind that can blow up the city walls. Don't worry, I have pictures in my brain, let's come slowly." In the next few days, the village was full of people, and the big guys had a clear division of labor. Xiao Chui brought people to collect sulfur and saltpeter. Old Zhang and I worked day and night by the iron stove. Finally, we used waste iron and wooden heads to pile up a few rough earth cannons. Although the range was not far, it was not small. When we were trying to shoot, we directly blew an old tree. The villagers were stunned and the military was even higher. But the good times didn't last long. After a few days, Xiao Chui came to report and said that there were a large number of people coming from the direction of the city, with hundreds of iron riders. They came to our village in a stern manner. Zhang Qianqian led his own team, and it seemed that he was so irritating that he wanted to beat us up. When I heard this, although I felt a little nervous, I was more excited. Hey, I had been trying to help the feudal old man with a long time ago. Brothers, be ready to fight. Move the earth cannons and thunder to the hillside outside the village. Let's get down to the heights, so give them some color first. With my order, the villagers moved forward. Several dozen Qingxian years of the Qing dynasty pushed the earth cannons and bombed the bamboo tubes on their backs, and quickly set up the ground on the hillside outside the village. I adjusted the angle of the earth cannon and recalled the modern simple cannon artery in my brain. Although it was not precise, the code could ensure that it would not explode. Not long after, the iron gallops far away could be seen, with black pressure and horse hooves shaking the ground. Zhang Qianjun was at the front, wearing iron armor and holding a long gun in his hand, shouting far away, "Li Zhizhu, I have given you an opportunity. If you don't surrender today, you will definitely tell you not to keep the chicken dogs in the village." I heard this and was so excited that I shouted at him, "Stop talking, come up, see who will be finished first." After saying that, I directly ignited the lead of a dirt cannon. With a strike, the iron ball burst out. Although it did not hit the person, it hit the ground and scattered a large piece of soil. The iron gallop team was in a trap. Several horses were shocked, and the soldiers were shocked. It was obvious that we had such a big killer. Zhang Qianqian's face changed drastically, and he stopped Ma and shouted, "What is this? Where are the demons from these people? Monster? This is called technology. Do you understand?" I laughed and let people continue to open fire. Several local cannons were flying in a row. Although they were accurate, their voice was shocking, and they directly pressed the iron galloping so hard that they dared not move forward. At the same time, Daniu and the others ignited bamboo tubes on both sides and threw them into the iron gallop, causing people to rush up in screams one after another. Zhang Qianqian gritted his teeth and forced himself to take people to a few times, but every time he was forced back by our artillery fire and bombardment, he lost several 10 people and finally couldn't stand it. He shouted unwillingly, "Li Zhizhu, please wait for me. Today's humiliation will be reported today." After speaking, he turned his horse and fled with a slaughter. Even the injured officers on the ground could not be taken advantage of. Chasing. I swung my hand and pulled everyone down the hillside, grabbed the knife and gun they had dropped, and chased and killed them for a while, directly driving the helping iron out for more than 10 miles. The villagers were so excited that some people held their armor on their bodies, learning the officers and soldiers shouting, which made everyone laugh. In this battle, the reputation of our village was finally revealed. People from several nearby villages heard that our iron gallops had retreated, and they ran to surrender and said they wanted to follow me. The farmers around Lianfuching began to be ready to move, and the prestige of the landlords and the government plummeted. I looked at this head and felt a little moved. Hey, the opportunity is here, so I just kept doing it and took people directly into the city and gave this corrupt government. Brothers, we can't just guard the village. Now it's time to kill the city and beat the dog officials who have squeezed us. I stood on the hillside and shouted loudly to the crowd. Everyone heard this. Lima was excited and shouted loudly, "Go into the city. Fuck Brother Zhizhu." Tiechui also clenched her fists and said excitedly, "Brother Zhizhu, I will go with you, we will definitely win." In this way, I carried several hundred people, pushed local cannons, and fire medicine, and killed them all the way to the city. Along the way, farmers joined the army, and the team grew bigger and bigger. When they arrived at the entrance of the city, there were already thousands of people, which was shocking. When the guards on the city wall saw this battle, they were so scared that they were so weak that they didn't dare to fight, so they opened their doors to surrender. Zhang Qianqian and the officials of the city hid in the patrol yamen, and wanted to resist, but as soon as our earth cannon was shot, the city door exploded and in a few seconds they attacked the inner city. I took someone to the yamen and blocked Zhang Qianjun and a helping dog official in the hall. They knelt on the ground and begged for a gamble, shouting, "Put your life." I sneered and let people carry them up. In the face of the people of the whole city, I announced the elimination of tycoons and taxes. The land was also given to farmers, and the government's food was opened and distributed to the people. From today, the city is ours. No one can ride on us anymore. I stood on the stone in front of the yamen, shouting loudly, and the sound of thousands of people below was loudly wailing. Tiechui stood beside me, smiling so hard that her eyes slapped. "Brother Tai, you really did it. We can live a good life in the future." I watched all this and felt satisfied. From a stingy boy in a broken thatched house to leading everyone to capture the city, all the way through the journey is to rely on the knowledge in the brain and the unwillingness to accept it. Although this is just the beginning, at least, the people in our village and the people in this city can finally stand up and live like a human being. A few months later, under my belt, Fuching began to change the big sword and axe. I teach you how to use simple mechanical and timber cloth. The efficiency has increased several times. I also built a small workshop to create more firearms and tools, and the lives of the people are getting redder and redder. And those landlords and dog officials have long been distant and dare not come back and act wildly. Brother Zhizhu, I heard that the court sent someone to negotiate and said that you would be appointed as a high-ranking official. What should I do? Tiechui came to ask me, her eyes full of curiosity. I laughed and slapped my hand. "High officials. I don't care. Tell them to make a real change, don't squeeze the people anymore, and wait for me to take people over, so that the whole dynasty knows what an industrial revolution is and what the power of the people is." After saying that, I turned around and looked at the fields far away. The villagers were irrigating with the water truck I designed, and their laughter was spread far away. The old Zhang walked over with a crutch and sighed, "Iron, I didn't expect that our small village would be today. It's all up to you." I patted his shoulder and grinned, "Zhang Daowei, that's just the beginning. The road ahead is still long, let's work together to let the world change in the end."